So, I sent my friend this TikTok of some guy using this tool to trace a really precise circle out of a piece of glass, and then he just picks up a hammer and smashes it. And while I thought this was absolutely hilarious, she didn't really get it, so I said, was because, like, he was using a fancy thing to be all precise, and then just hammer. And man used hammer to smash because man's strong and break things. Like his own heart when he fails to keep his destructive tendencies in check and hurt those around him. And while they are strong enough to withstand it, they will not stand for it, and he only ends up breaking the bridges he tried to build. In this essay on Tommy Shelby, I am now going to do an entire video essay on Peaky Blinders without playing the theme music or dressing up. Peaky Blinders is a show about power, violence, family, and unintended consequences, but we'll get to that later. Heavy spoilers for the first 5 seasons of Peaky Blinders, as well as some minor spoilers for the 6th one that just came out. So I believe most good pieces of fiction have a core philosophical conundrum that they try to explore. Ex Machina is the nature and morality of consciousness, Spider-Man 3 is truth versus lies. And I want to work out what Peaky Blinders is, although you've probably guessed what I think it is from the title of this video. And I think we get there by exploring the philosophies of the various characters in the show, and then how the show itself reacts to these philosophies, or these characters acting on their philosophies. Am I explaining this right? Okay, example. In Season 4, Episode 11 of the hit TV show, Dora the Explorer, the kleptomaniac fox known as Swiper tries to use a fancy gadget to steal a present from the titular Dora. But where protagonists Dora and Boots would usually use the chant "Swiper no swiping" 3 times in order to exorcise the kleptomania from Swiper, which somehow always works, in this scene they don't notice him in time and he's able to use his contraption. But instead of getting the present, Swiper accidentally grabs a skunk, and he is punished for his attempt by the skunk smell. This wasn't caused by another character. The show did this. It's telling us that stealing is wrong. Do not attempt it, the universe will punish you. The show itself possesses a philosophy. Okay, cool. Now that, but Peaky Blinders. I think the core of the show's philosophy is that violence begets violence. A character acts in a violent way, the show will go out of its way to make sure they get punished, almost always through a similar act of violence. To prove this, let's look at some of the individual characters' philosophies in the show, and how the show reacts to them. Starting with Tommy and his beautiful blue eyes. Tommy Shelby's wants and needs can be a bit vague, and I don't think there's a clear through line throughout the show. Tommy wants to be accepted by the upper class despite his low-born nature, and when he learns he will never be accepted by them, he wants as much money and power as he can possibly get. To what end? I have no idea. I don't think he does either. By the end of the first season, he has enough for both himself and his family to live a comfortable life with his business going very smoothly. But still, fueled by his ambition, he wants to expand his business into London. An endeavor he knows comes with risk of more bloodshed because he was told so repeatedly by several members of his family whom he trusts. Icarus, babe, you're flying too close to the sun. By the end of Season 2, beginning of Season 3, Tommy is successful in his expansion to London. He and his family are now living more than comfortably in frickin' mansions, and Tommy should be content. Because at the end of Season 2, when Tommy truly believes he's about to die, he cries out that he nearly had everything. Everything he wanted. So you would assume that when he gets to live, that would be the end of it, right? He has what he wants, and he gets to enjoy it. But Tommy doesn't know what he wants. He just wants more. He believes that after surviving an incident during his time as a soldier in the war in France, that he is a dead man walking. That any time he has now is just extra. So he'll use it to take any risks necessary to get whatever he wants. Okay, so it's a kind of ambitious hedonism. Eat, drink, be merry, and conquer, for tomorrow we may die. Okay, good enough. Let's go from there. Tommy's philosophy. During the first 2 seasons, we have learned something very important about Tommy's philosophy on violence. He seems to distinguish between 2 kinds of violence. That which is necessary, and that which isn't. He calls the necessary violence business, like it's part of what has to be done either for the good of the company or because someone is forcing his hand. Tommy Shelby and Immanuel Kant, it's a dialectic, I can prove it. The show has made Tommy pay for these acts of violence, but not in any meaningful way. Remember, he considers himself a dead man walking. He's got nothing to lose, and so far, on balance, he's won more than he's lost. So he keeps going. And here is the first seed of an ambition he always puts before those he cares about, which is why he will always lose them. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but there's this bit towards the end of the show where Tommy says,
"And that will be my legacy. Instead of me, there will be money. Because for most of the people who are close to me, that is what I am. Fucking money. That is my agency.
But that's not true. There have always been people who have loved him for him. Polly did, but he pushed her too far. He put his ambition before her, and he risked her life. And she is strong as hell, and while she did withstand it, she wouldn't stand for it. Lizzie is also an excellent case study in this, constantly trying to forgive Tommy for his ambition because she's seen the humanity in him. But at some point, she too realizes that he will never put anyone before his ambition.
What is this good that you overcome?
Because it's the only thing that keeps him going. Whenever he stops, he basically loses his mind. So, Tommy's philosophy? Kill or be killed. If you are not the most ruthless and cunning person in the room, someone will do to you exactly what you were thinking of doing to them. It's all business. It all must be done. Season 3 is where the shit really hits the fan, and the show lets us know exactly what it thinks about the violent actions of the Blinders. In episode 2 of season 3, John Shelby, Tommy's younger brother, insults Vicente Changretta. I have to Google how to say his name. John insults Vicente Changretta, whose son, Angel, then starts telling people around town that he's going to kill John for it. Both Aunt Polly and Arthur, the oldest of the Shelby brothers, tell John to apologize for it, or at least let someone else apologize for him. But John doesn't listen and ends up attacking Angel and cutting his face, thus putting him in hospital. After this, the Shelbys have a family meeting where Tommy and his blue eyes recap the entire situation, as well as Arthur and Polly's opinions. And Tommy says he will go along with neither of them, and they need to show strength. This is a pivotal moment that will, in a sense, set the stage for the entire show going forward. At this point, the Shelbys have had 2 opportunities to make peace with the situation. The first was when Polly told John to compromise and let someone apologize to the Changrettas on John's behalf. And the second is right now. Tommy could let it go, allow for a compromise while maintaining his power. The Changrettas have never shown any desire up till this point to step on his toes. They just want decency. But Tommy chooses violence, and everyone's fate is sealed. John will die at the beginning of season 4 as a direct consequence of his actions here, and Tommy too will pay dearly for his choice. Tommy orders the Blinders to take possession of 2 of the Changretta's pubs. Infuriated by this and the attack on his son, who is now in the hospital, Vicente Changretta orders a hit on Tommy. You know, not everyone who gets shot in this show necessarily dies, even when the wound looks fatal. The assassin sent to kill Tommy misses and shoots his new wife, Grace, in the heart. She does not survive. Grace has been a lifeline for Tommy up till this point. Despite being barely present in season 2, she is a driving force behind whatever humanity is left in Tommy. A candle held to his icy heart. A small measure that won't work quickly and maybe won't work at all, but at least there was hope of thawing him out. The show rarely wants us to know this, by the way, in this very long sequence of Tommy and Grace getting ready separately to go to a race together. Grace is shot with all warm and soft light, while Tommy's scenes are shot with cool and hard light. Cutting between them, as the show does, rarely serves to contrast them further. She represents warmth. He represents the cold. Their relationship is marred by terrible circumstance and betrayal, but they are in love, and Tommy smiles for one of the only times in the whole show, and you root for them for 2 full seasons, and at the beginning of the 3rd, they finally get married, and it looks like the beginning of a redemption arc. And yeah, sure, he's still got some dirty business, but he's cleaning up, and he's got her, and then she fucking dies. And she dies because of him. Because of his decision for what even he would regard as unnecessary violence, a fucking power play. Tommy is devastated, and he has a choice. This could be a moment for him where he reevaluates what he wants and what he's willing to do to get it. The show is begging him to look at where the path he's taken has led him to and to pick a different path. But that's not Tommy. He doesn't think at all. He only wants solace, and he thinks he'll find it in revenge. So he sends John and Arthur to get Vicente for him to kill, and tells them to kill his wife while they're at it. John does decide to spare Mrs. Changretta because she taught him in high school, and he can't bear to do that to her. But he's not forgiven for his violence on her son. This show doesn't believe in forgiveness. His fate is still sealed. Are you crying? I'm not crying. Okay. Let's take a second. Shit's getting heavy. It's gonna get worse. Meanwhile, Tommy goes to Wales to find a wise old Romany woman named Madame Boswell in order to seek absolution. Not for the violence and ambition that led to Grace's death, but for something else. You see, earlier in season 3, Tommy gave Grace a necklace, which he was subsequently told was cursed, and Grace was wearing that when she got shot. Tommy needs to believe that the necklace really was cursed. That would mean Grace's death wasn't his fault, and he wouldn't have to face up to his own path of destruction that led to this. But he was never going to anyway. He already sent John and Arthur to go get Vicente. He doesn't want absolution, he just wants to alleviate some of the guilt he feels. Boswell tells him the necklace is cursed because she thinks that's what Tommy needs to hear. When Tommy returns, Arthur and John have Vicente waiting for him, and Tommy taunts Vicente for a long while, explaining his plans to torture him all night before letting him die. This is a genuinely frightening and intense scene. Tommy seems completely unhinged in a way we have never seen him before. This isn't coming from loose cannon Arthur, it's coming from calm and collected Tommy. And while the show doesn't seem to be on board with him, the viewer truly empathizes with him. This is the man responsible for the death of Tommy's wife, the only bit of salvation he had since the war. We don't blame him for wanting to take revenge. And while viscerally we feel it will be hard to watch and we don't want to see it, we do crave the catharsis. While Tommy is going on his unhinged rant, Arthur shoots Vicente in the head. A mercy killing. Arthur feels what the viewer is feeling, wanting revenge but not being able to bear this. All of this directly sets up the conflict for season 4, where Vicente's other son Luca, who is part of the mafia in America, comes over to kill Tommy and his family as revenge for the murder of his father. And he succeeds in killing John and very nearly killing Arthur. Violence begets violence. By the way, I am skipping a ton of detail and plot points here. Like, this show is bonkers. John has a shotgun wedding, Tommy is blackmailed by the IRA, the British government, and an evil priest. These are separate incidents. The evil priest kidnaps Tommy's son, Arthur drowns someone in paint, Arthur attends a Passover service, fucking Elfie Solomons exists, Tommy nearly gets his whole family hanged because of something that happened with an exiled Russian oligarch. I'm still a bit fuzzy on that particular plot point. And Arthur attends a fucking Passover service, and it's my favorite thing ever.
Shalom. Let me just say, shalom.
Also, Tommy basically blackmails the fucking King of England and gets a knighthood. There may or may not be a spirit world, and Arthur starts raising chickens, which isn't as shocking, but it makes me happy. Right. What were we talking about? I want to focus on two, let's call them plot lines, that I think best demonstrate the show's position on violence, because they're about two characters that start in a place of innocence, and as soon as they leave that realm, they are punished for it. In the last episode of season 4, when the Blinders find one of the people responsible for what at this point seems to be Arthur's death, Tommy tells his younger brother Finn, who is just a teenager, who never fought in France, and who at this point has never really committed any real acts of violence, to take the man's eyes, to become a blinder. Finn is hesitant. He stands at the precipice of a different world, a world he, until now, was very much circling around, just on the periphery, but wasn't actually part of. Tommy tells him to do it for Arthur.
Take his eyes, Finn. Do it for Arthur.
Although Tommy knows at this point Arthur isn't actually dead, so really Tommy is telling Finn to do it because he believes this is the side he should be on. Finn is part of this world now. Then, in the very next episode, Tommy tells him the exact opposite. Don't put yourself in harm's way. Shelby boys don't get their hands dirty anymore. Tommy is telling him violence leads to more violence, and you can't take that risk, but he's got some conflicting fucking ideals over here. And I think that's the machinery that makes the plot go. Tommy's philosophy contrasting with the story's philosophy. Anyway, it's too late for Finn. Tommy's already brought him in. Finn ends up in a gunfight, the second time we ever see him act violently, and he takes a bullet in the arm for it. Somehow, Tommy is upset by this, but it's his own fault. He still can't see it. He did this. Second arc I want to look at. At some point in season 5, Finn and Arthur recruit a local singer to become a bookmaker and fix some soccer games for them. Though he's reluctant to join, not wanting to be part of this world, he does under threat from Arthur. No one says no to the Peaky Blinders. And he quite quickly starts enjoying this lifestyle. He only works on the administrative side of things and gets all the benefits of being a blinder, like money, drugs, and girls. And while he does have to extort, threaten, and bribe, he doesn't have to commit any acts of actual violence. He gets to maintain a level of innocence. Cut to season 6, and he is forced by Arthur to strangle someone with a wire until they stop breathing. It's a very difficult scene to watch. I mean, we've seen plenty of violence in the show, but this is different. This is a loss of innocence. And then, in the very next scene, while trying to come to grips with what he's just done, he is tortured brutally in a way I can't even talk about because... Immediate comeuppance. The show is very clear. Do not leave innocence. You will regret it. There is no solace once you cross the threshold. There is no forgiveness, and there is no stopping it. At many points in the show, Arthur tries to reform himself, to find solace in God and in his wife Linda. But he always comes undone. Most potently in this scene. But first, some background. His wife has left him because of the last time he fell off, and she's gone to a Quaker community, meeting with another man who she hasn't done anything with, but that hardly matters to Arthur. Before this point, their relationship bore some similarities to that of Tommy and Grace. Like Grace, Linda was, in many ways, Arthur's path to solace. And it looked like it was even working. And I don't love the idea that these women's primary purpose in the show is to be the path to redemption for these men, but I'm also not qualified to speak on the subject, so I'm going to link to some great videos on that below. So again, when Linda left, the source of Arthur's solace was taken away from him. This should have been a time for him to reflect on what he's done wrong and how he can fix it, just like it should have been for Tommy when Grace died. Instead, he hunts down the man she's been talking to and beats him until, quote, he has no face. The scene in which he does this is one continuous long take. The camera refuses to cut away and makes us watch every agonizing moment, but it's entirely backlit, almost silhouetted, so we don't see any of the details of the injuries, only Arthur inflicting them, and it still makes us flinch. The backlighting of the scene makes it feel very evocative of religious imagery, I think signifying the hard turning point in Arthur's own religious journey. Bathed in God's forgiving light, he sins and afterwards says to the man he's just beaten half to death,
I'm a good man. I'm a fucking good man like you. A God-fearing man. There is good in my heart. There is good in my heart. But my hands, these hands belong to the devil.
He wants to be this man. Good, God-fearing, the man his wife wants him to be. But he can't. He's saying he's crossed the threshold, and no matter what he wants, he can't go back. I think that's the philosophy of the show, or at least its core philosophical question. Is there forgiveness? Can violence be done for good? My reading is that the show doesn't seem to think so, or at least it doesn't seem to think it's worth finding out. Because even if there is redemption, it's a fucking hard turnaround. At the end of season 6, it mostly seems like Arthur has crossed back over. He's clean, he's back with Linda, but we've seen this before. And we've seen what happened after. He's not back in a place of innocence, just precariously balancing on the edge. It's hard to get back once you've crossed that line. Violence begets violence.